Booze and Barbecue. Hello and welcome to another Booze and Barbecue. This is Andy, and with me today is a very special guest, Zack Morgan from PRE Racing. How are you doing, Zack?
Oh, pretty good today. I'm recovering from my SEMA trip, so...
You were kind enough to meet us right after you came back from SEMA, so thank you for doing that. I hope you were able to get a little bit of sleep.
Yeah, I made it home a little after 1 o'clock and got some hard sleep in and woke up this morning and drove right back down here, so... luckily, I don't live far away. It wasn't a bit too big of a deal to make it back.
Well, I appreciate that. How was SEMA? Did it treat you all right?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, we always have a good time checking out new products and meeting with, our accounts, possible sponsors for the coming year, stuff like that. So it's huge. It takes a ton out of you. Like I said, I think I walked a little over 40 miles in 3 days. But yeah, it's always worthwhile. We find one or two things that are kind of really innovative and get your brain moving, on top of, just kind of seeing trends in other people's markets and stuff like that. So yeah, it was good.
I think you said something to me about, because there's not a whole lot new that's come out performance-wise from manufacturers, you're seeing a lot of resto mods and things. That's kind of the popular thing to bring to SEMA right now.
Yeah, I mean, definitely like the whole LS swap market is still just pounding away. I mean, we saw countless older Camaros and, even Cadillacs and a bunch of other stuff with turbocharged LS motors, and definitely seems like the whole street outlaws kind of crowd has pushed those cars into popularity. Almost all the big turbo manufacturers and stuff had a pro mod, no prep car kind of thing sitting there, which, I like. I'm a mechanical guy, so I'm crawling all over them and stuff, but it's a lot different than the years past. For the last 3 years, there's been always kind of one car that stood out from the crowd, and it was a new vehicle, and that's where the support was going. But this year it was really just, new vehicle wise, I would say the Ford Raptor was the standout of the cars. So new product showcase, there was 5 or 6 intakes for that vehicle and a bunch of support. But other than that, what really stood out to me was older Porsche vehicles. Those are really popular right now. And then, the whole Optima street car, resto mod, pro touring kind of cars were really prevalent.
You're right about the Porsches, though. Those are really making a comeback right now, and they're just gaining some kind of an extra popularity. I know the value has gone way, way up for a lot of the mid-70s, late 70s, even the late 80s turbo 911s and things. Those have really picked up in value recently.
Yeah, we saw everything from the early 70s cars all the way through to like 993s with and 996 with slant nose aftermarket conversions, and I definitely saw a lot of the early model cars. I think the RWB cars definitely helped with the popularity. Almost all of them had some kind of wide body kit. I saw a pretty cool one with a Tesla drivetrain stuffed in the back of it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was a really neat car. Must have been like in 78 or 9. Really clean car, simple, and then just a couple Tesla motors strapped in the back of it.
That's definitely not something you see every day.
No, yeah. You see a lot of stuff you don't see every day at SEMA, whether you like it or not.
I did see some photos of Kia Stingers. I don't think there were too many of them, but it looked like a few people were trying to embrace those as well.
Yeah, we saw a couple new products for the Stinger. TurboSmart, one of our biggest brands here and sponsors, has a new blow-off valve and everything out for it. They're definitely trying to give some support. Kia had a huge outdoor exhibition area this year where they were running the Stinger and doing some drifting, and you could do ride-alongs. Car sounds great, and it looks pretty quick, and we went and looked at the M3s, and both of them look like a blast. So then they have their new SUV out, so they had like an off-road course set up for that. But yeah, so I think that's an interesting car. It's kind of like right in the middle of the market price-wise and has some good bang for the buck performance. So I don't know if it's a sports car per se, but you might see it take the place of like some, lower-end BMW models and stuff like that with the same kind of performance.
Right. They're definitely trying to market it as like a GT car, something that's got 4 doors, but it can get out of its own way.
Yeah, so for a company like us, that means mostly you're not going to get anywhere past just the normal bolt-ons. It might be like a drop-in filter and an axle back and maybe the blow-off valves if they want that noise. But other than that, those types of of cars rarely go beyond that point.
Just slam it.
Yeah. Yeah, some nice wheels and probably airlift on those, I would guess.
Exactly. Hey, they look good. I'm not a person that's into the stance, but, those probably are not going to look too bad rolling on a set of 20s and lowered a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think it's a decent looking car. I mean, it definitely fits in the market that it's in, so...
Well, speaking of decent looking cars, by the way, walking around your shop has just got me spinning. You've got so much good stuff in here. Walking through, I'm looking at like a GC6 wagon. I'm looking at Subarus of all shapes and sizes, Rally Subaru and Road Course Subaru, and a tubbed with skinny front tires drag Subaru. And you've got a 300ZX back here. There's something with no top, a white convertible. It almost looks like there's a little bit of a Lotus Elise MR2 thing going on.
That's actually a Factory 5 818.
Oh, it's a Factory 5.
Yeah.
See, I saw the sequential shifter and I thought, what is that? That's wild.
That's actually one of my technician's vehicles. It's he put the whole car together himself. So he had a, WRX he wrecked, and he had a lot of good parts on it and decided to scoop up that kit and put it all together. And yeah, it's like 2,000 pounds and 350 horsepower, and it's a pretty cool little rocket for the money.
That is crazy. And what do? You just cap off the center differential, basically, right?
Yeah, on his car, it had a 6-speed, so it's actually a lot more work. They don't make a plug-and-play 6-speed setup for it. They just make weld-on plates, and you have to take the center differential apart and weld it up and some different things. But yeah, you can make it all work, and you just use the whole front half of your WRX drivetrain to make it work.
That's crazy. I know they do the same thing with the Audi transmissions. If you're looking to do like a mid-engine LS powered something, you'll do something similar. But what are you driving these days?
Well, my daily driver is pretty not awe-inspiring at this point. I have it's a 2008 Honda Civic Si.
Yeah, but those H-Stock stickers, those add like 50 horsepower, right?
Yeah, they do me proud. I win quite a bit with the car, actually, in H Street. So it's a full prep H Street car, but it's kind of, 2 years ago I sat down and I wanted something I could drive every day and was going to be happy with. And I didn't have a dedicated autocross car at the time. And I thought that car was really underdeveloped for that class. So I scooped one up and won a couple tours with it the first year. And then, we bought our new car. So actually this last season, I had one of my technicians running the Civic, and I, just told him if he put some tires on it and showed up, he could get some experience and run the car. So, and he had a blast, and the car's still super fast. So definitely a good mixed car,
Somehow underrated in a weird way.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a pretty phenomenal car especially for the money, for $8,000 you get a 200 horsepower, 8,000 RPM K-Series in a pretty stiff chassis that really isn't very heavy. I mean, it only weighs 2,600 and something pounds.
That's light for a four-door.
Yeah. And, it gets 30 miles to the gallon. I mean, it's the perfect, I don't drive a lot every day, maybe 15 miles, but it gets me here and back for a couple weeks on a tank of gas, and you can show up and win on the weekend. So it's kind of it's really the perfect autocross car in that regard.
And you've got that Honda reliability, so you can just run it and not really have to worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, I just change the oil, and the motor always does what it's supposed to do.
Those K-Series, that is such a terrific motor. I mean, everybody knows how good the B-Series motor was.
Yeah.
But those K-Series are just another level.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a fast car by any means, but it's a smooth, fun engine. It's got good revs. The gearing is short and tight, so it's a little under-geared for most second-gear courses, but you can just stand it on the limiter and not care because it's going to hold up.
Well, and if you ever have something happen to that car, I mean like to the body, not to the engine, obviously. I noticed you've got a EG6 hatch with a big wing on it. I mean, that thing's probably just screaming for a K-swap.
Yeah, that's our chump car from a few years ago, actually.
Really?
So it's got a LS motor in it right now, but yeah, I mean, that's certainly what you do with something like that if it ended up going to the scrapyard.
Heck yeah.
So yeah, it's a good daily. And then beyond that, I just have my serious car, obviously my Evo.
Yeah.
And then we have a tow vehicle for my wife and her horse, and that's about it.
Well, so the Evo, that is your half-mile car, right?
No, the Evo's my autocross car.
Oh, the Evo is the autocross car.
All the half-mile cars I do are through the shop. One of them is a customer vehicle that I work on a lot. And then, as you saw, next year we're going to be debuting our drag chassis car out there in the shop. So we're putting that together as well this winter.
Oh, sorry. Spoiler alert. There's a tubbed WRX drag car coming.
Yeah, pretty much. A lot of people know it's been coming for a while, but we've been so busy with our customer's half-mile car, we've been kind of delaying the project. We've had motored together 2 or 3 times the stuff in that car and then ended up selling it because somebody else needed it more than we did at the time. But yeah, the half mile has really been a good exercise for the shop. We've learned a lot about the engine program and how to make big power on these Subaru cars, on top of, getting out to some events away from Oregon and increasing the exposure of PRE. But our half-mile car is a 2005 WRX. It's like 1,000 horsepower WRX sequential trans. It's the world record holder for 4-cylinder Subaru, so it's gone like 197.4 in the standing half-mile. And, we're rebuilding that car right now for spring, but that's been a really good engine exercise for us as a shop. Everybody's on board and just trying to keep developing that platform since it is so much a part of our business.
Is that a 2.5?
Yeah, it's a 2.5.
It is. Okay. Because I was thinking for some reason that it might be a 2-liter or a 2-liter base at the very least, because I know the 2.5s have had some issues, but maybe that's what you're talking about with your engine development program.
Yeah, I mean, every engine has issues, especially when you're trying to make the power that we're making on this car. In the end, regardless of what anybody tries to tell you, there is no replacement for displacement. So you could say a 2.2 on 50 pounds makes as much as a 2.5 on 40, but if I just put the 2.5 on 50, then it's still going to make more, right? So on top of, wanting the displacement, it's also just the most prevalent engine in the Subaru market. So everything that is a problem with the stock car is not a problem on any of our built engines through the shop. It's, the pistons are at a minimum going to be changed out for forged units. All of our cars here, I'd say 90% of them get upgraded oil pans and pickup tubes, which are, one of the other main issues with the engine is the oiling system and cracked pickup tubes. The head gasket thing is actually like a big misnomer in the Subaru world. Turbo Subaru dual cam motors really don't have any head gasket issues. But even still, all of our engines get shipped with a minimum of 11 millimeter ARP head studs. So they're actually pretty stout in that, at that level. Stock, they're definitely vulnerable, not, a lot of it is, of course, owner induced.
Oh yeah.
Running them low on oil is probably still the number one cause we see of Subaru engine failures. And because they are prone to burning some oil, it seems like it just accelerates people's ability to make that mistake.
Well, why is it the RX-8 does it and everybody loses their mind, but the Subaru does it and everybody's like, meh, that's just Subaru.
Yeah. I mean, I think Subaru did a pretty good job making people aware of that situation. I mean, it's a simple physics problem that if you lay your motor sideways, you're going to have more oil consumption. You shut the motor off and oil pools in the bottom of the cylinders. You fire it up. When it's cold, it's going, pretty much straight into the combustion chamber, or a portion of it is. So that ends up being part of it. And any forced induction car really burns some oil. There's just no way around it. You're going to get high positive crankcase pressures under boost, and that's going to push oil back into the intake and you're going to burn it. It's just the way it goes. So they do it more because the pistons are so big. There's so much ring area there for oil to get by. A Subaru, because the motor is so compact, the stroke is only 79 millimeter on a 2.5, but the piston is 99.5. So it's like a 4-inch piston.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, oil consumption can pretty much be directly correlated to bore diameter because it's just more ring for it to move past. So that's one of the main contributing factors of the Subaru.
Well, didn't Subaru try to mitigate that by using the shorter ringlands, which also contributed to some of the the hot spots, I should say, or is that also a misnomer?
So the piston geometry is the same throughout all the years, but what they did seemingly try to do to help correct the oil consumption problem and is to tighten the ring gaps, and the ring gaps are actually what cause the piston to fail. So in high heat situations, the rings end up growing to the point where they close.
Oh, it's that tight. The ring gap from the factory is that tight.
Yeah, I mean it's not much. We run them significantly looser on all of our motors, obviously, but which increases oil consumption. But yeah, they butt together, and then as they butt together, the friction to the cylinder wall goes through the roof, and that's actually what fractures the piston.
I had no idea.
Is the load of the ring. So if you look at the fractured ring lands on a Subaru piston, it almost always coincides with the end of the ring, like where the ring is butted together.
Interesting.
So actually, even if you were to take a brand new Subaru motor and pull it apart and just gap the rings looser and put it back together, the reliability would go up tenfold. And that's how a lot of the guys who've done stock block records and stuff like that really have made that happen, on top of running fuels that just cool the engine much better, like ethanol-based fuels and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, you guys, you're still running, then I take it, like open deck block and stuff, or are you trying to reinforce that when you rebuild your motors?
Basically, it comes down to everything below about 450 horsepower is okay on an open deck.
Now, I'm sorry, that's a little bit of a, I shouldn't say that because I think the STI motor is like a semi-enclosed, right?
Yeah. All the 2.5 liters are semi-closed. They only have really like 3 connections of the sleeve to the block. It's still a very open design. It's definitely a weak design, and they do fracture. We find that they typically fracture, between 500 and 550 horsepower to the wheels. So, 400-ish, we try to push people into going with one of the closed deck solutions where they machine it out and put aluminum inserts in there, stuff like that. And then everything over 600 horsepower to the wheels, we really try to push them into our, what we call a pro drag block here. So it's a full cast iron sleeve semi-closed deck block.
Oh, wow.
And I still believe that's the strongest block that you can put in the car for long-term use anyway. So,
and if a person wants that, is that something where you take their engine as a core and then you build it out?
Yeah, you can. There's a few issues with reusing cases on a motor like that. A motor's a pretty good investment at that point. You're talking, I think this block retails normally for around $9,000. And so by starting out with brand new cases, you're just going to get the most life cycle out of your engine, because the main line's not going to be screwed up from being ran. The deck surfaces are brand new, all that. And so a lot of times you actually cut down on the machining costs and stuff by just starting with new cases. So our typical process is buy brand new cases from Subaru. They go out and get sleeved by the people we have do the sleeving. And then we do the finish machining and assembly and all that to make sure it's exactly how we want it. And there's, of course, 100 different little tricks that go into getting them to hold. But, we're able to do on those motors, the Pro Drag, over 1,000 horsepower and 55 pounds of boost.
Holy
pretty
smokes.
easy on those things. Yeah.
And that's just, you're doing the block and obviously pistons and rods.
Yeah, actually, the race motor that we rev like 9,500 RPM, it's pistons, rods, billet crank, cast iron sleeves, O-ring cylinder heads, big cams, valve train. It's the whole 9 yards to get that kind of power out of them,
Yeah, but at the same time, 2.5 liters making 1,000 horsepower, through the whole season, like reliably. That's pretty shocking.
Yeah, we've definitely been pushing the boundaries of what's possible. We found the limit of the rods that we were using. We literally broke one in half from too much torque production. And so that motor didn't live very long, but the one before that went an entire season, 75 or 80 half-mile runs before we tore it apart and found, a couple of the bearings starting to go. But to be honest, anytime you get up to 250 horsepower per cylinder, you have a short service life.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no way around it. You're going to be pulling the motor out, and that's really for any car that makes that kind of power. You got to have a pretty strict service regimen, because it's really in your best interest to remove that engine before it breaks, and fix it up and put it back in, as opposed to breaking it and having, a whole pile of parts that aren't any good.
Right, exactly. And people need to understand half mile is a completely different animal than quarter mile, because quarter mile, that lasts for so many seconds, but your half mile lasts quite a bit longer than that, and you're under that heavy load for a much longer period of time, a period of time that people don't really comprehend, because I think a lot of people just think, oh, it's half mile, so it's, double what a quarter mile is or whatever, but it's completely different. And when you're trying to stretch it out that far, all of your loads and any damage that may be occurring in the motor, it all just goes up exponentially.
Yeah, so obviously you have a number of factors that are going to be an issue for you. Heat management being one of them. Keeping the water and oil temperatures down throughout the entire pass, because as water temperature goes up, the likelihood of having detonation also goes up. Half mile is definitely kind of misunderstood, because you see cars go to the drag strip and trap nearly what a lot of the cars at the half mile will do. But it's a completely different thing when you have a, fully prepped surface with a specialized tire and all this to help get the car down the track. But like, for instance, the Subaru that we run, we've turned down a little bit and trapped 155 miles an hour in the quarter, but then it only goes 195-ish in the half mile. You would think doubling the distance would get you more than 40 miles an hour, but the thing is if you enter that second quarter mile at 150 miles an hour, that last quarter mile only lasts you about 4.5 seconds.
Exactly.
And so you don't have a lot of acceleration time left. And then of course aerodynamics become a lot more important in the half mile, especially in that fifth and sixth gear area where, I think by my math, we're probably losing close to 300 horsepower in drag. And you're just really trying to push the car through that air. And that's why power management and, building up the power throughout the run to combat that drag really makes a big difference. But we spend a lot of time on the aerodynamics of the car, not just for picking up mile an hour, but also for stability, because really, slowing down from those speeds is part of the issue.
You need that downforce. You kind of need that drag to keep everything going straight down the half mile. And then, like you said, bringing it to a stop is going to be your next big hurdle. At 190, what'd you say, 194?
We've gone 197 in the
197.
half.
Yeah, slowing down from 197, that takes a little bit.
Yeah, all cars fundamentally, get lighter at the back than the front unless they have significant aerodynamic changes. So when you go to transition from full throttle to no throttle at that kind of mile an hour, you definitely get the rear of the cars loose. It's you have to do some driving. The parachutes greatly help the stability, so at those speeds, I'll take that over not having one any day.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we use a parachute on the car. And that helps a lot with the stability. At 190 something miles an hour, the chute has as much power as the brakes do. So it's really just, pull the chute, let it get out, do its thing, and then slowly get the car shut down. A couple of places we run, we don't have a lot of shutdown, so we got to really be hard on the brakes, but yeah, it's a different challenge. It's an interesting challenge to me. It's definitely for motor durability and stuff. It's way beyond the quarter mile. We could easily double the longevity of our engine if all we were doing was quarter mile work. But we're in sixth gear at 180 miles an hour at 9,000 RPM trying to power through that air, and that's a lot of load on a small engine.
It's amazing that they last as long as they do. Honestly, anybody that's ever put a motor together or had a motor fail under high power, they know that it is just brutal trying to do these half-mile races. So my hat is off to you guys being able to build an engine that can last that long and produce that kind of power. Do you think we'll be seeing a 200-mile-an-hour WRX next year?
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm doing everything in my power to make it, a reality in April at the Neverlift event down in California. So our current car has gone under the knife, and we're doing pretty much everything we can. We're switching fuel types, and we're, rebuilding the turbo kit in some areas and things like that to make it more aerodynamically sound on top of lighter. So yeah, I mean, I think I think we had the power to do it last year, but a lot of racing is just being at the right place at the right time, and unfortunately, we weren't at the right place at the right time to get it done. So, but we've ran in the mid 190s for 8 or 9 passes now. So it's just, a little bit of a tailwind or the density altitude being just right, and then it's going to do the number.
Nice. So, you guys are right there on the edge.
Yep. Yeah. It seems like you're really close, but I mean, the faster you go, the harder it gets. 195 is not close to 200. That's just the way it is. You got to really push.
That's so funny. You've got not just the half-mile car, but you have got so many other project cars going on here. What else is coming in and out of the shop that you're pretty proud of right now?
I mean, so, you saw some of the diversity in the shop, but honestly, we work on just about everything that's fuel injected here. So we do modern muscle cars, we do Subarus, we do Nissans, pretty much everything. Projects right now I really like are, we got a 69 Datsun pickup truck right now that we're doing a full SR20 T engine build and swap. It's kind of like a pro touring 69 Datsun pickup. So it's the front suspension's been changed out for Mustang double wishbone. It's got a Ford 8.8. We're rewiring the whole truck with a painless system. So it'll be a really nice modern drivetrain in a really cool patina 69 Datsun pickup.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, it should be really fun. I bet it should be like 2,400 pounds, 400 horsepower, and it looks really good. So that's been a good project. We've done just a ton of fabrication. We have a great customer who loves the thing and just wants to see it finished. So we've been pushing through that. Honestly, we have a lot of great cars come through here. I like race cars. I'm not a compromise kind of guy, so I always favor the ones that are, kind of ruthless in their intent. But we build good cars for kind of everybody's savvy. If you want just a nice street cruiser or whatever, we do a lot of STIs and stuff at 400 horse that are just really nice cars to drive, all the way up to, the Z car you saw out there makes 500 and something to the wheels.
Wow.
And it's a really fun car to drive. It's a really nice example of a Z32. And so yeah, there's just a lot of cool stuff coming through here. I mean, my main focus and contribution obviously is developing the high powered cars. And so I'm always proud to see the 600, 700, 800 horsepower cars come out and do well and get driven on the street and, enjoyed by the people who spent the money on them. So, but yeah, that's basically it.
So you're kind of just waiting for somebody to roll in here and go, hey, I've got one of these new, what do they call them? Elephant?
Oh, yeah. I laughed when I heard that name. I didn't actually see that when I was there, but, we've worked on we work on a lot of Challengers. We've had a couple Hellcats in here. I think they're great cars for the money. I mean, people just enjoyed driving them. We have actually a female customer. She's probably, in her late 40s. She has a plum crazy purple one, Challenger. She came in and we did a blower and a bunch of stuff, and she goes to PIR and drag races it with her husband. And
heck yeah.
It's just a really cool platform to do those types of mods,
I love making the jokes about how fat they are and how it's a super heavy car, but you can't argue with that performance. I mean, they are quick.
Yeah, and I think, they look great is one of the main things for me. Is it has that retro nostalgia look to it that people just really dig, and they're cars to work on for the most part. There's it's just a simple high performance car. They took a relatively cheap chassis that looks great, and they put a pretty badass motor in there, and that just works.
That usually works. That's why I have this affinity for my 90s Econo boxes and putting a whole bunch of horsepower in them, because simple, cheap, easy to work on, but tons of power.
Yeah, I mean, I think of the SRT4 motto from Mopar back in the day suits it the best. They said, "There's only so much room in the stable. We filled ours with horsepower."
Yeah. I love that. That's a great saying.
Yeah. So that was when people were complaining about not having cruise control and power windows and all this. And they said, hey, it has 230 horsepower in a Dodge Neon. That's what we wanted to build.
Exactly.
And I think the simplicity of things like that a lot of times is why they're so successful. That's, for me, the Hemi Challenger and all those. They're just real simple, high-performance cars. And, I think we need more of those types of things.
I have said this before in other episodes, but, the perfect example of that is how we didn't get any of the performance Japanese stuff, really. I mean, a few things, during the 90s, but the new WRXs, when they first came out and they were really popular, and the Evos and the STIs and all that stuff that Japan and Europe was getting, but we weren't getting. And then they finally brought the WRXs over as like a tester. And they sold like hotcakes. They couldn't keep them in the dealership. And then the Evo came over, and then the STI came over, and it was just this and that and this and that. I always think to myself, what is holding these manufacturers back from making a little factory hot rod? Think like Copo style. You know what I mean? We all wanted to see a Honda Fit with a K20 in it. We all did, and you know that they would have sold great.
Yeah, I mean, they would have sold probably enough to at least increase the popularity of the Fit. I mean, that's the thing, is you have to kind of, on those low production vehicles, you have to be a little bit careful, because they will sell great, and people like us will see a lot of them, right? But as a percentage of the overall sales, it's probably still kind of low compared to how many Fits they're going to sell.
Yeah, but the brand
Fit
awareness
itself will seem cooler to people just because they make a K series Fit. You know what I mean? So I think that those types of things make a big difference. But yeah, you're certainly right. I mean, the WRX is basically the car that this company was built on. It moved to Portland right around the time that the WRX came out, and that was the mainstay of this company really from the beginning. And it's still, 65 to 70% of our business every month is Subaru related. So in the Northwest, you just can't get away from them.
Right. Yeah. Subaru is a huge part of the Pacific Northwest. They have a huge following. And even though, Subaru is really trying to push their Outback wagons and live in the two Labradors in the back lifestyle, that sort of thing, even though there's all of that, performance Subarus in Oregon are a big part of it. Oregon and Washington.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, but on that note, we've diversified now into the off-road adventure type Subaru marketing that you just implied, and we have a lot of customers who, are more the middle-aged type and just use their Outback for actual, camping and adventure type stuff.
Overlanding.
Yeah, overlanding. I mean, that's our Rallytech brand, our online name. That's its mainstay, and we really, we make a lot of products that support that type of vehicle, from, heavier springs so that you can load the thing down and not have it lose all its ride height, to, skid plates and all that type of stuff. So, it's all different, but it's, the same kind of enthusiast is really just as pumped about his Outback as the guy who's liking his WRX. They just have a different reason for being excited about it.
And that's why they call them enthusiasts. We're enthusiastic about whatever it is that we have. It doesn't have to be an STI. It doesn't have to be a Hellcat. It can be an Outback H6.
Yeah. I mean, I think, one of the main problems with the automotive culture in general nowadays is that we don't just respect each other's choices in vehicle or the modifications we try to do. Or, I'm a car guy. I don't pick and choose which models I'm into. I can go to a hot rod show and have fun. I can look at a Harley and think it's cool. I can do all that. But a lot of people just get kind of locked into this niche and they just think that's the only way to do it. And really that's incorrect. You should be able to do it however you want to. So if you come in with a Crosstrek and you want to make it louder and put a skid plate on it, then I'll do it, if it makes you happy. And so I think that's, the stance and all that, like I'm not into it. And I think those people are typically one of the worst proponents of that type of stereotype, where they really just think that that's how cars should be. And they don't reciprocate the enthusiast attitude the same way,
Whenever you encounter someone that says respect all builds or has one of those hashtag respect all builds stickers and stuff, they will be the first one to crap on your car at a car show.
Yeah, I think that's pretty likely. Unfortunately they get a lot of flack for their cars a lot of times, so that's
because their cars are useless.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I would agree with you. I think you can have a great looking car with flush wheels and tires and proper, motorsport type alignment and still have it be perfectly functional.
I have a very simple rule for stance. I have no problem with a stanced car that has a ton of power and can put it down. Mm-hmm. So that's my whole thing. Like whenever somebody says, you just hate stance, I don't. The guys that, like one time I saw a stanced twin turbo W12 Volkswagen SUV. I'm losing the name. It's not the Touareg. It's the one up from that. But, it was full stance, had 24s on it. They had to cut the fender wells out to fit these huge tires on it. And it also cut a 12 2/4 mile. Mm-hmm. So, if you've got that, then yeah, I'm like, hey, by the way, your car looks great. It's got the stance and wow, that thing's quick.
Yeah. I think for me, it's like, I actually like the look a lot. I think that they, in terms of the appeal I have aesthetically to it, I think they always look great on the ground, right? But for me, the cars I really like that are stanced are cars that weren't good for anything but that in the beginning anyway. Mm-hmm. So like, just coming back from SEMA, I saw some older Cadillacs and some cars like that aren't performance vehicles, they're beautiful cars, but they're not ever going to rip the 1/4 mile. They're not going to be used in autocross or road course, stuff like that. And it's an art car. That's how I kind of look at it, right? And I have no problem at all with somebody putting that thing on the ground and putting stupid camber in the back of it to clear a wheel, right? But if you do it to an Evo or to an STI, it seems like, just a real sacking to the car's potential.
Right.
You know what I mean? You just ruined what, and even to that point, it drives me crazy when I see an STI which came with, a great proper tire from the factory, and then they put a 400 tread wear Linglong on there, and it's like, this isn't going to do anywhere near what it's supposed to do, and the crime is half the time those are the people coming in and we're putting sway bars on their car or coilovers and all this. Yep. And really all they need to do is just buy the tire that will help the car do what it's supposed to do. Buy a 200 tread wear tire. Hell, buy a 300 tread wear tire from Continental or something, and it's still going to be a million times better than it will be on those with all these mods.
Exactly.
So that kind of stuff really grinds me, but I think that there's cars that should be that way. Certainly a lot of the Volkswagens and stuff that aren't really performance oriented, I love to look at them, and it doesn't bother me in a bit that that's what they've decided to do with it. It's more the real high performance cars that get done that. GTR, like, why would I put 18 by 12s on a GTR with a 285 and then put bags on it?
Exactly.
It's like you just took the best Japanese performance car of the last 10 years and neutered it.
Well, you do a little bit of autocross instruction for folks.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, remind me again what the name of that class is here at PRE.
I just call it the suspension tuning course. It's just kind of a 101 level course. The goal is to really just help people understand the very basics of getting their car to work well at autocross.
And that's such a great class for anyone to take. I highly recommend it to anyone listening to this that wants to get into any kind of motorsport. Even if you think you know what you're doing and talking about, come and check it out because it's really, really important. And then after they take the class, they have the opportunity then to do a test and tune with you guys as well.
Yeah, so we always try to make it a 2-day deal. So like usually it's a Friday night we do the class, and it's usually lasts about 3 hours. And then, everybody with all this knowledge fresh in their mind wakes up the next day and comes to the track. And I'm there usually with, my co-driver, and we help people kind of understand their cars and make some changes. And we remove the stress of it being about competition, or really even the mindset that it's about competition, and just like tweak on the shocks and stuff so that people can really feel and understand the difference. Cause I think, fundamentally understanding what's going on when you make those changes removes the inhibition to do them. You know what I mean? So a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to touch my car. It's like time to race, and it's, I tweak on my car in between runs almost every time I take it out. And that's because, I have a desired result, and I know exactly what 2 or 3 things are going to work towards that goal. There's no fear or ambiguity or anything like that. I just have confidence in what I'm doing. And really this class is just to help people build up that confidence in, changing the tire pressure, changing the shock, changing the sway bar to get a desired result.
I don't know about you, but that is probably the best way for me to learn in a dynamic environment where things are happening on the fly and I can actually see the changes as they're happening. One of the best things that I ever gained was having you guys tell me, hey, take some air out of this tire or put some air in that tire, airing down a little bit in the back or airing down a little bit in the front versus the back to change the way the car is rotating, things like that. I mean, all of that on the fly while you're going around the track, that is an experience that is so valuable, and everybody needs to have that. And I remember, this has been a long time ago, but I specifically remember you replying to a comment to someone in a car forum, and you said what kind of, they had this question about what kind of suspension they wanted for their car, and you said, what kind of tires do you have on it? Mm-hmm. Bringing it back around to your complaint about the tires. You've had that for a long time, my friend.
Yeah.
I've heard you talk to people about this before, where you said, what kind of tires do you have? And they tell you Nankangs, and you go, don't do any suspension, just go out and get some Nittos.
Yeah.
That's
or
all you
whatever
need right now.
The tire is at that time. I mean, it's really the same problem. And the first thing that we go over in my course is tires, and how, if you're not on the tire that you intend to compete on or anything like that, or is competitive, then you're never really going to be competitive. It doesn't matter how you can go out and have a great time and slide around and squeal tires and find balance in your vehicle. But if you're looking to improve your times, there's nothing that you can spend your hard-earned money on that's going to do better than tires.
Exactly.
Besides, entry fees.
Right. I think there is something to be said about a person who is just starting out. I don't really have any problem with a person having, so like the Subaru BRZ Toyota FRS is a perfect example of this. They have the same tires on that car that they have on the Prius. And Toyota said specifically, we do that because it keeps the limit very low and the car is very tossable, slidable in that way.
Yeah.
But then if you want to change those tires out for something much higher performance, then the chassis is able to have much higher performance. And so if a person is deliberately doing that, where they have a set of wheels where they put really, really garbage tires on them simply because they want to go out and kind of slide around and just do whatever, I can understand that. But yeah, I'm with you. The folks that go out and they say, yeah, I bought these, like you said, what do you say? Ling Lang tires.
Ling Long.
Yeah. Ling Long tires. And,
that's a real tire, by the way.
Oh boy. Wow. I don't know, man. I don't know. Achilles is another one that people really latched onto. I hear some of their performance tires are good.
I mean, I think in the drifting world, it's a pretty good tire nowadays. Of course, they're looking for some different properties than I would look for in a tire. And I would choose a different tire between autocross or a track day car too. They're both going to be 200 tread wear, ultra high performance street tires normally. But it would be a different tire one way or another. I think the main issue for me, and let's start out by saying, a lot of the people who take my class are trying to get better at autocross. They're trying to understand what's going on. They're trying to make changes to go faster. A lot of them are, going to every autocross throughout the season and trying to win a club level championship for themselves. And so, that's why I always just tell them, like, if you're not on the right tire, you just got to get the tire on the car, like bar none. And so the main issue that I have with a lot of cars in autocross scenarios, not necessarily a track day, is that without enough traction, i.e., one of these nice new tires like an RE71R or a BF Goodrich R1 or whatever that has a nice stiff sidewall and a lot of grip, is that almost every car on something less grippy tends to understeer, including the BRZ. And there's nothing more frustrating to somebody learning or even to somebody very experienced than having a car that understeers all the time. And in autocross, because of how aggressive the maneuvering is and stuff, the tendency to understeer is just way more prevalent. So, a lot of times in autocross, we're just searching for front grip all the time because we need to transition faster and turn in faster, and that buys us more time to put power down and all these types of things. Well, that's not the case in road racing. If you took a lot of really high level autocross cars on the road course, they'd probably be pretty frightening because they just have so much front end response.
Right. They're going to be very twitchy and
you're
going
to turn in and it's going to rotate 15 degrees the second you turn the wheel, and you're going to end up, having your shorts full.
That's a good way of putting that. Yeah. I have so many questions that I wanted to get to during this, but I have to ask you something. You're a person who drag races, half-mile races, time attack, road race, autocross, and you're talking a lot about the importance of autocross. And I have had kind of an influx in the last year or so of people who will say to me, yeah, autocross, that's fine. I really want to do track racing. By the way, people who've never done any kind of racing.
Yeah.
And they just say, oh, I just don't think I'll get anything out of chasing cones in a parking lot. Do you have advice for people like that?
Yeah, obviously I've done everything. I keep coming back to autocross, not just for the driving challenge, which is extreme, but because of the engineering challenges that come along with it, the ease of being able to run the car, those types of things are really valuable. But I would say for most people, like, for instance, there was a time in the early 2000s where I pretty much didn't autocross at all, and all I did was track days. Okay, I did like 15 in a summer or something. Whoa. And it was like, at the end of it, unless I want to drive more than 3.5 or 4 hours, I'm running the same 3 tracks every time. And I learn quick. I grew up karting. I race everything. I'm just bored. Without any sort of competition behind it, or a new track to try to master, I just wasn't getting anything out of it. Whereas every time I wake up at an autocross and the course has changed and the weather's different, it just feels like a real challenge to make it happen. And I think some of the autocross drivers out there are, some of the most phenomenal drivers there is. And you see a lot of that now with, a lot of pro drivers also having a lot of autocross experience. Some of the fastest guys at nationals every year are also, Pirelli World Challenge drivers. So,
right.
That's kind of what I would say is, if you're trying to learn car control and you're trying to get into motorsports on the cheap, you cannot beat autocross. You can race nearly every single weekend during the summer with various clubs within 100 miles of where we're sitting right now, and it's not going to cost you more than $100 to run for the day. There's no track day here that costs $100. The risk is obviously way lower, and you're going to learn just as much, if not more, in a shorter amount of time.
That's good. That's very true. I 100% agree with that. That's kind of the argument that I use with a lot of people, because at the end of the day, no matter what you think about autocross, it certainly can't hurt.
No, I think for instance, for me on a track day, you get to the point where you're almost like relaxed in a lot of the areas, right? And you're doing your laps and you pick a certain area where you have a problem, and you try to just focus on that area, and you're doing the rest of the track exactly the same. I mean, if you want to push yourself to get something, through your brain, only having 3 runs to do it and make it count is certainly adequate pressure to say to yourself, like, I got to get this together. I got, I have 3 or 4 things I got to fix this lap, or I'm not going to win. And for me, that's a lot of the challenge. And as the cars get faster and, everything, of course, the challenge goes through the roof. I've never had, and I don't think anybody's ever had, a perfect autocross run. There's just no way to do it. And if you did, the time would be so astronomically good, you couldn't even fathom it. So that's kind of on top of the fact that getting into high level autocross is so much easier than getting into any other type of racing at a level where it's, considered national level competition. So you have, companies and sponsorships and contingencies on board and all that kind of stuff. You just can't get that in road racing without a huge investment. You know?
Even Spec Miata or B Spec, people think that that's a really cheap way to go. And don't get me wrong, relatively speaking, it is, but it's still astronomically more expensive than autocross.
Yeah, I mean, I work with a lot of Spec Miata teams, and I would, if I had to break it down in a per weekend dollar amount, I would say it's somewhere between $600 and $800 a weekend to run a Spec Miata. Whereas, my Civic is the entry fee plus the gas and maybe $35 in maintenance and tires.
Right.
So you're talking $155 a day to run the car. And I think a lot of people really don't think about the maintenance and the upkeep and stuff to make these cars truly fast every day when they go to purchase the vehicle that they expect to race. There's a big difference between owning a WRX and owning an STI when it comes to keeping it maintained properly and running fast.
Exactly.
Just the brake pads alone and fluids and all that. I mean, it all just scales up with the cost and performance of the vehicle.
You're so right. You're so right. And everything you guys are doing here is so right. I'm very, very impressed. If people want to check out PRE, where can they go to find that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're on Instagram and Facebook at PRE Racing. You can go to preracing.com. That's our shop website. We have blog projects on there, job opportunities if there is any, those types of things. And then our main parts distribution website is rallytech.com. It's RALLITEK. And,
sorry, try that one more time with the Rallytech.
It's RALLITEK.
Awesome. And of course, everything that you're doing is going to be folded in there as well, right?
Yeah, so, any of the performance parts that we will ship to you, which is every single thing we can get pretty much, will be on the website. If there's something there that you don't want that you want that we don't have listed, of course you can just call the shop and we ship it right out to you. And we have a lot of customers from all over the country and Canada, and we ship engine blocks and one of our biggest selling products right now on rallytech.com is pre-assembled struts for all the Outbacks and the Foresters and stuff like that. So we actually put the lift springs on, brand new struts, brand new top hats, all of this, so a customer can just remove their suspension, bolt on the whole brand new strut assembly ready to go out of the box, and just drive it to Firestone and get your alignment, and you got your lift kit and everything there. And we sell tons of those setups.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you guys make sure you're going out and checking that out. Follow them on Facebook and on Instagram, because that's where you're going to see all the photos of all the racing that Zack is doing and all the cool shop projects that they have going on here at PRE. And while you're there, of course, make sure you're making your way over to facebook.com/BoostBoostBBQ, the Instagram, the Twitter, both at BoostBoostBBQ. BoostBoostBBQ.com is our website. We're going to be going to World Food Championships coming up, by the way. So make sure you're checking out our sister show, boostboostbbq.com/pardon my fork. Zack, thank you so much for being here and doing this, my friend.
Absolutely. It's a good time.
Oh, I love it. And we'll get tons and tons of photos and have them up on the website. So you guys come and check that out. Okay. Thanks so much. And, all you folks at home, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. Boost Booze and Barbecue.